Hey y'all, this is Jess. Welcome back to Sunflower Dairy. Today I am out in the orchard and I am going to be trimming the fruit trees. So I'm going to be starting with this fruit tree here. This is a peach tree and this is getting awfully tall, so I want to trim the top of this, and also I want to reshape it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, pruning your fruit trees, there's a couple of different reasons why you'd want to do that. So the first thing is, if your fruit trees get way too tall and they get growing all crazy, then it's going to be hard for you to harvest the fruit, especially if they get way up tall past where you could reach it with a ladder. Second thing is, you want to prune your fruit trees so that you can get more fruit, because a lot of times if you don't prune your fruit trees, then it's not going to stimulate that fruit growth. Also, another thing is you want to make sure there's enough airflow in your fruit trees, because if there's not enough airflow in your fruit trees, one, your fruit could, start rotting, or if there's not enough airflow, then also a lot of times your fruit trees won't be able to get pollinated. So there's quite a few different things that is a reason to prune your fruit trees. So when pruning all kinds of different fruit trees, you want to make sure you're cleaning your clippers between trees. So I just take alcohol and I just clean the blades on my clippers. Alright, so I'm just going to clean these because I have been clipping other fruit trees with these. Just going to make sure that these are good and clean so it doesn't spread disease to the other fruit trees. Alright, so when I grow my fruit trees, I want to be able to reach fruit when I'm just on a little step ladder, but this fruit tree is going way too tall for me to reach, so I'm going to have to prune it on one of the bigger ladders, which definitely tells me that this tree is getting way too tall. Alright, so I have my big ladder all set up here, and this fruit tree is definitely way too tall. Should not have to get on a ladder this tall. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top this so that I don't have to go way up on a tall ladder. Now you want to make sure that you have nice clean cuts. You don't want any breakage or splittage everywhere. You just want nice clean cuts. And basically you're just shaping it how you want it to be shaped. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about ages of trees for a minute. So if you're going to be topping trees like I'm doing, you want to make sure that they're old enough for that, because if you have just planted a little tiny small tree, you don't want to be chopping quite a bit of length off of it. You want to make sure that your tree is a good few years old. My tree back here is probably at least 5 to 7 years old, so you definitely don't want to be doing that on a couple of year old tree. But definitely when your tree gets up in numbers, you definitely want to make sure that you're getting those trees shortened so that you don't have to be reaching up high or climbing way up tall to try to pick your fruit. So when you're pruning smaller trees, what you're going to do is you're just going to be trimming the ends of the branches to promote fruit growth. But with this older tree here, I am going to be taking quite a bit of length off of the top of this tree. Let's get back to it. So when shaping my fruit trees, I want to make sure that I have a flattened out top on my fruit trees, and I want them very rounded out, and to make sure that you have enough airflow in the middle for fruit growth. So I'm just taking all this length off the top here to give it a good shape, and then I'm just going to be rounding it out and giving it that good airflow. Like I said, making sure that we're getting clean cuts, so you don't want anything split or broken. You just want nice clean cuts. Alright, so let's talk about a couple different cuts that you can do for your fruit trees. So you can do where you have a limb and you just trim the very tip of it. Or if you want to have the growth go into your bigger part of your tree, you can just take off the side branches. Let me get in a little bit closer so you can see this. Your side branches right here, you can just take those off to your bigger part of your tree if you want to thicken up your branches, because your tree is going to be putting its energy into these little side shoots to grow them longer. But if you just snip these off right there, then it's going to be putting its energy back into this, which if you just cut the ends of these side branches, it's going to be putting its energy into these buds here. And with this, if you cut off the side branches, it's going to be putting its energy into this bigger part of the tree. Now, if you look on the branches, you'll see the buds. The buds are where the fruit is going to grow. But if you're also not pruning, you're not going to be getting as much fruit, because when you're pruning your tree, it helps promote fruit growth. So there's a couple different things to think about when pruning trees. I'm just continuing to shape up this tree. Just making that into that rounded off shape here. Now when I'm topping the tree, just like I talked about the different cuts you can do for pruning, when I'm topping off the tree like this, it's gonna, instead of putting its energy into growing tall, it's gonna start putting its energy into growing out these side shoots here. Instead of tall, it's gonna grow out. Just want to get a before look at this tree before we finish pruning, so I can show you what the shape's gonna be afterwards. Alright, so here's the tree after I cut off that top growth, and now I just want to cut off some of the lower side branches to give it some more airflow. Taking care of the top branches, so now I'm going to be taking care of these side ones to get that airflow in here. And a lot of this down here is actually dead wood, so just go ahead and get rid of that, because the dead wood isn't going to produce anything for you. Alright, see how we're just getting this tree to open up here, getting more airflow in here. We're going to take off these here as well. This is creating that airflow that we're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off too. That one. Dead right there too, so we'll go ahead and take that off. Alright, see how we have more of a open airflow concept now. Now this tree is shorter, so we can reach up, grab our fruit, and this is more open as well, so we can grab up and pick it as well. So the best time to prune your fruit trees is in the winter time, when they're dormant, when their leaves are off. And I like to prune my trees later in the season, just before spring, before any of the buds start growing leaves or flowers or anything. Just before that happens is when I like to prune my fruit trees, especially my peaches, because I find that if you prune your peach trees closer to bloom season, I've noticed, at least for myself, that I end up with more fruit if I prune closer to the blooming and producing time. So as long as they're still dormant, but it's just before the weather starts warming up and the trees start waking up, I find that is the perfect time to start pruning the fruit trees. So we have tons of different fruit trees here in the orchard. We have peaches, like I said, we have nectarines, we have cherries, we have plums, we have apples. So I like to make sure that all the trees are pruned and trimmed and shortened and shaped to how they need to be to just make it easier and help them produce more fruit. Alright, I have a ton more fruit trees that I need to prune, but thank you all for watching and have a blessed day.